Hello everyone, welcome to the What If Anime YouTube channel. Today, we're diving into an exciting new story that will take your imagination to the next level. Let's get started. What if Naruto become the king of Hale and got harem? Here is inside while looking up at the ceiling in his office and holding his pipe. Things around the village had been peaceful and quiet, too much so for too long. 4 long years had slowly passed since Naruto left the village, seeming to take the joy and very sunlight with him when he walked through the gates. He had tried to stop the boy, asking questions like, "What about your friends?" or "How can you become the Hokage if you leave?" But the blonde was unmoved, replying with, "What friends?" And, like I'd ever be chosen to be the Hokage, he tried everything short of lying and forced to get the boy to stay. But seeing as the boy was a civilian, he could hardly do anything about it, seeing as he had once again failed the exams to become a genin. It wasn't until a few weeks later did he find out that Naruto's test scores had been changed and that he had been sabotaged at every stop by the assistant teacher Mizuki, who was later caught trying to steal the forbidden scroll of seals. He admitted to sabotaging the blonde and changing his grades in hopes of tricking him into stealing it after a few long seasons with Ibiki and Anko. After looking over each test of the blondes, he found that not only was Naruto's scores inconsistent, the boy had got them all correct, even the bonus questions that were usually Chunin level. He had sent out a tracking team to try and track down the blonde in hopes of telling him the news, but when the ninjas returned a failure, he turned to Jiraiya and his network for help. Only, Naruto was nowhere to be found. To make matters worse, Danzo has been pushing to have the boy returned and conditioned to be a weapon and had his agents going over everything with a fine-tooth comb. He even found the file he had hidden under loads of unrelated papers, the one which detailed Naruto's parentage. Lucky for him, but not for Danzo, the cripple had believed that the council would agree with him, to have the son of Minato Namikaze and Kushina Uzumaki brought and make a loyal pawn. But it backfired. Instead of wanting the jailer of the Kyuubi made a mindless puppet, they all wanted him to return and restart both the Uzumaki and Namikaze clans. Danzo was pissed that no one listened to him about it anymore, but a firm, figurative slap from the Hokage made him shut it. It had all happened a month ago and he had been happy to send out tracking teams in hopes of finding the boy. Hopefully, he hadn't changed too much and would be thrilled to return. In Kirigakure, the village hidden in the mist, a small battle was going on against the loyalist ninjas and the rebels. They fought with the fury of an army twice its size and neither seemed to be gaining the edge. Suddenly, someone was thrown through the groups, knocking down everyone that stood in the way until he crashed through the wall of a bar. The fighting stopped as a short figure appeared holding a staff with a hook on each end, making the loyalists cheer while the rebels got nervous. "It's Yagura," one of the rebels yelled, "the Mizukage." "I feel that in the morning," someone else groaned, making everyone look to the large hole in the wall a few yards away. Climbing out of the hole was a tall, muscled, blond man wearing a pair of dark black sunglasses over his face. He had on heavy black boots, a pair of blue jeans, a red muscle shirt that showed off all his toned muscles, black fingerless gloves, and a bandolier holding a few small pouches. He adjusted his sunglasses with one hand and held a large bottle of sake in the other, obviously one that he found in the bar. "Is that all you got, pussy?" he taunted the Mizukage. "You fight like a..." Yagura's pink eyes narrowed on the blonde before he shot forward with his staff, swinging it to pierce him through his side with one of the hooks only to have it caught under the man's arm which held the sake. Unable to pull back or release the staff in time, Yagura soon felt some of his teeth shatter as the blonde threw a punch that sent his body rag-dolling and bouncing back out onto the street. Slamming into a pile of rubble from previous battles, Yagura rolled to his front and coughed, gagging as he spat out his molars and a bunch of blood. That punch was inhuman, almost as if he'd been hit with a hammer. Luckily for him, he had managed to roll with it as not to have his jaw get shattered. The blonde chuckled and popped the cork off the bottle before downing it all in one go and throwing the bottle down as the short cage stood up, blood dripping down his chin. Looking at the staff, he checked it over and smirked before snapping it over his knee and throwing the pieces aside. Yagura and the blonde blurred forward, fighting with their fists until the shorter of the pair pulled a blade and stabbed the blonde in the forearm. With a yell of pain, the blonde grabbed Yagura's wrist and forced it out of his arm. "You mother-ing!" he growled out before twisting the limb until a sickening crunch came from the Mizukage's arm. Yagura screamed in pain before the blonde grabbed his bottom jaw with his injured limb. Releasing the broken arm, The blonde then grabbed the shorter guy's upper jaw with his other hand, not bothered by the blood and spit from the missing teeth before he pulled them apart with seemingly superhuman strength until the bone was dislocated with a loud pop. But he didn't stop there. He kept pulling and pulling until the skin and muscle ripped, separating his opponent's entire lower jaw in a spray of blood. Dropping the writhing Mizukage to the ground, the blonde then raised his boot and stomped on his head, crushing the green-haired teen's skull and killing him. Both the rebels and the loyalists were confused as to what they were supposed to do. The Mizukage was dead and his killer wasn't known to anyone. The bloodline wars were now over and no one knew what to do except stare at the muscled blonde as he pulled out a cigar and lit it with a large grin. Blowing out a ring of smoke, the blonde chuckled, "Naruto wins, fatality." With Yugura dead, Kirigakure's rebel leader Meijirumi, a beautiful buxom redhead with green eyes and a cheerful personality, was soon chosen to become the next Mizukage. As her second order of business, right after making sure everyone knew that she was the boss, she went about finding the man responsible for the brutal slaying of Yugura to offer him a spot as one of her most valued ninja. Especially after recognizing him as the Burasuba no Joshi, and a ranked Ronin ninja wanted by many noblemen for sleeping with their wives or daughters. The Burasuba no Joshi, or the Bane of Women, was a powerful shinobi and notorious womanizer surpassing even the writer of Icha Icha. It was said that once you had him, you'd never find another like him and would forever be comparing others to him and wishing for more. Walking up the hall to the newly cleaned Mizukage Tower, a chunin unlucky enough to have to deliver paperwork stopped and asked if the new Mizukage was in, only to get a shrug from the tired guard. Sighing, the chunin trudged up the stairway and knocked on the door. No answer. He knocked again but still nothing. Balancing the stack of paperwork in one hand, he carefully turned the doorknob and nudged the door open. The chunin then took hold of the papers and walked in, planning to leave the papers on her desk before leaving. He never noticed the 3-foot-long and 1-foot-thick empty scroll as it flew towards him, branding him in the face and sending his body back into the hall. "Mother-er," Naruto growled while holding his middle finger up at the slowly closing door, his other hand holding the tight Y-ass of the brand new Mizukage as they broke in her desk. "Oh." Mei gasped out as his length bottomed out in her. "Ignore them. Ah, pound me more, oh Kami." He grunted as he focused completely on her. "Who's your daddy now?" It seemed like years had passed before he finally got news from his tracking teams. Sarutobi had been starting to worry about them, but when he finally received the message from one of the messenger ninjas, he hadn't found the news as enjoyable as he had thought. His trackers couldn't find hide nor hair of the blonde Uzumaki. Even his student Jiraiya was having a hard time finding anything relating to the missing 18-year-old young man. From what he had been hearing, Jiraiya was even working so hard that he hadn't even visited a brothel or peeked into a hot spring for close to 3 weeks. All he did know was that a small blonde wearing orange had been seen traveling away from Fire Country, just weeks after Naruto left. It seemed like Naruto had just vanished once he stepped foot out of Fire Country. Jiraiya's information network of spies and informants were also hard at work looking for Naruto Uzumaki, but considering that the only picture they had was well over 4 years old and that people change over time, he felt foolish to have gotten his hopes up. Little did he or Jiraiya know, had the man relapsed into his normal perversion while in Tea Country, he would have ran right into the blonde in question. Although, he did hear that the civil war in the Hidden Mist village was over. "Oh Ruto-sama." A busty young blonde-haired woman cooed as she rubbed against the blonde's muscled arm while sitting in her place of work, a well-known and surprisingly clean strip club. "You're so manly." Smirking, Naruto leaned back into the seat with the girl as another danced seductively on his table. "Don't you know it, baby?" The tablecloth in front of him started moving and the sound of coughing and gagging reached their ears over the loud stripper music. Another blonde, the other woman's twin, crawled out with a devious grin while wiping her mouth, her face red from choking moments before. "Oh, that tasted so good." Naruto grinned under his sunglasses and pulled her up to his side. "How about we go somewhere more private, pussycat?" "Hey," her twin whined while softly slapping his arm. "No fair. I want to go." "Baby, there's more than enough of me to go around." Outside, Jiraiya walked by while biting his lip and repeating to himself over and over that he couldn't go in. He felt like a drug addict who saw his dealer waiting at a street corner but couldn't go over. "Oh," chanted the young blonde twin as Naruto pounded his cock deep into her core with long, powerful strokes that penetrated far beyond anything that she had ever felt before. "Me. Oh, pound my pussy. Naruto continued to do just that, his shaft positioning in and out of her dripping core while both ignored the other twin who could only lay on the bed next to them. She could only breathe in deeply and felt completely numb from the pounding she had received, her legs spread wide with his semen coating her belly and breasts, some even seeping from her abused slit that seemed to glow red from being head raw. Here I come, baby, Naruto grunted out after a minute before pulling out. Where do you want it? The blonde girl got off her hands and turned to face him on her knees, wincing as her stretched inner walls protested the movement but holding out her chest. Come on my titties. Naruto jerked off a few times and grunted as his cock pulsed, sending thick, rope-like strands of semen splashing onto her chest. The girl edged erotically as he did and began to rub it into her skin before leaning forward and licking his still hard member. Cammy. How can this thing still be so hard? She questioned breathlessly, her warm breath making his member jump lightly as she pulled back. Because I'm not done with you yet, baby, he smirked before gliding his cock towards her mouth once again, which opened without question and allowed him to enter. Just relax and breathe through your nose. I want to see if you have a gag reflex since your sister didn't. The man took a hold of her hair and slowly began to push his manhood in and out of her willing mouth, humming at the fill of her tongue as it moved underneath his shaft. Slowly he began to pick up speed and pushed in deeper. Deeper and deeper his shaft would glide before his balls would slap each chin, just moments before she gagged, causing him to pull out. I guess you twins aren't exactly alike, he mused before she grabbed his legs. Please, she edged out, my throat, choke me with your cock. Her sister could only watch as he began to brutally slam her sister's face into his pelvis, the sound of her gagging and heaves as his cock slid in and out of her throat filling the room. He pulled back, letting her take a deep breath. Yes, she gasped out, my slutty throat, before her mouth was full once again. When he released her, she took long deep breaths before looking up to him with a smile, her mouth and chin covered in her drool. Cammy, that was so good, she told him deeply. The man nodded. Yeah, but I'm not finished yet. Turn around and show me that ass. You got one more hole too. Jiraiya hauled ass as he sped down the road towards Konoha. After days upon days of searching, untold amounts of cash spent purchasing information from his less than agreeable contacts, and numerous missed chances of perversion and debauchery, he had finally found something. It was a bounty poster. The bingo book was a publication sent out by hidden villages that named their missing ninjas, their known skills, looks and anything else that could be used to identify and take them down. It detailed all that and a price for either their head or something else that could be used to assure the village that they were dead. But one thing about the bingo book was that only a village's missing ninja or a highly dangerous terrorist could be placed in the pages. There were just too many criminals and thieves to be listed. So for notable civilian or Ronin criminals, bounty boards and posters were put in places where hunter ninja and bounty hunters went. Imagine his surprise when he saw the smirking face of a blonde man looking at him from one of said posters, holding up his middle finger towards the camera while biting down on a thin cigar. A blonde with 3 whisker-like scars on each cheek hailed by fathers, husbands, brothers, and boyfriends as a menace while perverts called him a role model. He was the bane of women, a magnet. He was Naruto Uzumaki. It had been a few hours since he had left both twins fully satisfied and unconscious at their shared home, both covered in his fluids and leaking from both holes. Now Naruto found himself inside one of the nicer casinos inside of T-Country's capital, grinning and drinking sake as he continued winning game after game. Had it not been for the fact that no evidence could be found to prove that he was cheating, he would have been kicked out already, much to the owner and the dealer's annoyance. They had even gotten a retired censor ninja that worked for them to watch to make sure that he wasn't using chakra. His numerous wins started attracting a crowd who cheered with each win. He even had a few girls crowded around him since he was winning so much money. Said girls were known as vultures, hovering around and hoping to peck at his massing fortune after seducing him. They were also known as gold diggers. Winner. The roulette dealer groaned out as the blonde once again won, prompting an excited cheer from the crowd around the table. Naruto laughed loudly as he drank another shot of alcohol, put it all on 0. This made them all start mumbling. Betting on the 0 was considered risky, but betting all his winnings on it was foolish. There was a silence, but one hushed voice was heard from young raven-haired girl wearing a black kimono while holding a small pig wearing a dress. He must have brass balls, she said to her companion. an older busty blonde with a purple diamond on her forehead while wearing a green gambler's coat. Or he's just stupid, she muttered with a bottle of sake in hand, annoyed that this man had better luck than her. The ball on the roulette wheel continued to bounce around the numbers as it began to slow. No, Naruto stated, I've got balls of steel. Just then, the ball stopped bouncing and landed as the wheel slowed to a stop. Winner. The casino barely survived the day, losing well over half of the money they had locked away after the blonde cashed out and left. Needless to say, they banned him from ever returning, saying that he was the devil himself because of his unnatural luck at gambling. Didn't bother hit though, he had been called worse in the past and took solace in the fact that no matter what they said about him he was still better than them. Sarutobi Hiruzen could only stare in shock at the bounty poster he was given by his student. All this time he had looked for Naruto and turns out that he had overlooked a simple fact. Naruto wasn't a missing ninja. Most ninja never paid a bounty board any mind, compared to the bounties that the bingo book offered. Hunting civilian targets was considered to be underneath them, especially when their bounties were much lower compared to a missing ninja's. So to think that they could have found the boy much sooner had they just looked to the civilian bounty board and looked at the picture was a blow to their pride. At least the poster hadn't had the boy's name up there, that would have been downright embarrassing. Taking a few minutes to write down a mission scroll he sent for one of his promising tracking teams, Team Kurenai. You bastard! Screamed a middle-aged man, causing people in the streets to stop what they were doing to look as a built blonde man was chased by the town blacksmith, an equally muscular man with multiple scars on his face. I'll kill you for deflowering my little girl. Naruto ran faster as the man swung a large hammer at him, narrowly missing his skull by inches. Oh come on, she's older than me and no can like that, he called out. Die. The blonde cursed and jumped onto a rooftop, ducking as the civilian blacksmith threw the massive hammer at him. Huh, missed me. He yelled down to the man, looking over the edge at the man who roared in rage at him before running over to where a ladder was propped up against another shop. Oh shit. Naruto had met this nice 19-year-old and worked his magic on her. Needless to say, when he got her to her home and into her bed, the girl's father came in. Not the first time that happened. There wasn't much that he feared, but pissed of fathers was at the top of that list. When they saw a man balls deep inside their little girl, they seemed to gain inhuman power and a will to kill anything. The same went for husbands and boyfriend. Team Kurenai, formerly known as Team 8 back when they first made it out of the academy, stood before their aging Hokage and waited their mission briefing. They were a promising team of trackers and hunters, using Kiba Inuzuka and his Ninken partner's heightened senses to track by smell, Shino Abarame's bugs to use as a beacon or to drain chakra from a target, and Hinata Hyuga's Baikugan to look through objects or her family's taijutsu to paralyze them. Their leader, a beautiful dark-haired, red-eyed Jonin by the name of Kurenai Yuhi, also contributed to the team by her masterful use of genjutsu to hide their position, confuse targets, or trick them. Team Kurenai, reporting for duty sir, Kurenai stated with her team standing next to her, ready to hear the mission details. It had been a while since they had been chosen for a mission instead of just randomly picking a D rank or simple C rank, and it was nice to know that they had been chosen for their skill. Ah yes. The old man nodded as he looked at them before picking up a scroll. Team Kurenai, here we are. You've been picked for a tracking mission. Jiraiya has finally found some information on a person and I need you to track him down. He told them before handing them the scroll which he had personally filled out. Who's the target? Sarutobi stopped for a moment, weighing his options of telling her just who she was tracking down. Kurenai was a pervert basher of the highest order, second only to Tsunade and Anko in terms of brutality when faced with an open act of perversion, telling her that they were going after an infamous womanizer and that he was not to be harmed. Too badly, could cause some less than pleasant reactions. Deciding to just say it, Hiruzen Sarutobi leaned forward. You're looking for the Burasuban no Joshi. A fire appeared in Kurenai's eyes. When do I kill him? No, he shouted, holding his hands up for her to stop and listen. You're not killing him. This is a tracking mission, not an assassination. What? Kurenai frowned. What else is there? Then she blinked. They weren't killing him, and from how the Hokage reacted she doubted that it was to capture and imprison him. Don't tell me. He nodded. You don't mean? Yes, you are to track him down and convince him to return to the village. She stared at him with a slack jaw. Hokage-sama, don't we have enough perverts around here? Why would we need him to come here? Because Kurenai, we want him to return and restart his two clans. Now, no more complaints. You are to track and convince Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze to return to Konoha. Naruto huffed from his place against a large tree that grew in Fire Country. Not too long ago he had been traveling and seeing as Tea Country was surrounded by water all but one side. He had no real choice but to go north unless he wanted to spend time on a boat again and go to Wind Country to the west. Ow, he muttered after a minute, biting into the now ruined cigar that was clenched in his teeth, broken and shredded on the ground while one of the younger trees ahead of him were broken. He had been traveling, minding his own business when out of nowhere, something attacked him, hitting him with a powerful backhand that sent him flying. I've been waiting a long time for this demon, a person said as he appeared from the road, jumping onto the broken trunk of the fallen tree. It took a lot of work to track you down, but now I'll end you, monster. Naruto looked at the person and partly recognized him from his past. Mizuki? He questioned while spitting the cigar aside. Last I heard, you were dropping the soap in Konoha SCF, strict correctional facility. Finally, ed up to the warden enough to get parole? You demon, the man hissed before smirking, but I've been dreaming of this day. I'm going to enjoy killing you. Naruto got up to his feet and popped his knuckles. I'm gonna rip off your head and piss down your throat. Mizuki was much more muscular than he had been back in Konoha. Back then he had a thin frame and was the poster boy for average. But now he was easily rivaling him in the muscularity department, but he doubted that the convict's muscle was as dense as his own. The convict made the first move, jumping at the blonde with speed that no escapee should have and trying to slam his fists down on the blonde like an enraged beast. Naruto simply stepped aside, allowing Mizuki to slam his fists into the ground before being kicked in the ass, causing him to stumble forward and hit the tree trunk that had stopped Naruto in the first place. Are you even trying? Naruto deadpanned. Mizuki spun around, trying to punch him only to be kicked in the gut and thrown back, where he skidded and stood back up with an enraged growl. Looks like you're better than I thought, demon. Naruto, who was already disappointed with the fight, replied sarcastically. You can think? I figured that your fellow cellmates had ed your brains out. Mizuki sneered. Joke all you want, demon, he said before pulling out a tube of white liquid and drinking it all, but now the joke's on you. Really? Naruto hummed, says the person who just drank what looked like a tube of semen. What, miss your boyfriend back in the pen? The man didn't reply. He only shook violently as hair began to grow all over his body while he grew another 2 feet and turned into what looked like a humanoid tiger complete with claws, ears, and fangs. Yes, Mizuki roared out, this is true power. Wow, you look even more like a pussy than before. I must warn you though, Sarutobi stated as he explained the mission. Naruto left the village under less than desirable circumstances. He may not feel inclined to listen to you and might become aggressive. Is he really that dangerous? Hiba scoffed before the Hokage answered, cutting Kurenai off before she could reprimand him. Yes, he is. He may be classified as a civilian, but he is in fact a Ronin ninja. He's been known to lift over 600 pounds with ease, and that's without using chakra. Rumors say that he has perfected and mastered a berserker jutsu to the point that he no longer suffers the effects. He told them while remembering the embarrassment of thinking that he had no information on Naruto for so long when he had it right under his nose for so long. Berserker jutsu were considered to be a forbidden suicide technique. It granted the user near immortality for a certain amount of time, allowing them to fight with gaping wounds, broken bones, missing limbs. As long as the brain was active and at least partly connected to the body, they would continue to fight. But once the jutsu wore off, they would drop to the ground and succumb to their wounds or chakra exhaustion. It was considered to be forbidden because the more it was used, the harder it was to keep in control. Some lost their minds and attacked fellow ninja instead of the enemy. The forest now had a small clearing made by the 2 hulking men, Mizuki swiping at the blonde with his new claws while Naruto sometimes knocked them down with his chakra-enhanced punches. Both were dodging each other's attacks for all they were worth, but despite Mizuki's enhanced speed, one of his ribs were now broken, while the worst Naruto had was a scratch on his forearm. Is that all you got? Seriously, a nutless monkey can do better. Grr. Shut your demon mouth, Mizuki roared, sprinting forward with a fury of wild swipes. Naruto dodged them all with a smirk, and when the first opening presented itself, he nailed the larger humanoid with strike to the torso with the force of a sledgehammer. doubling him over before bringing down his fist on the back of Mizuki's head. Mizuki's hulking frame slammed into the ground, but before he could move, Naruto planted his boot on the back of his head and pressed down, grinding his face into the grass for a moment before raising his foot and stomping until the white-haired man's movement slowed. Removing his foot, Naruto grabbed him by the hair and pulled the larger man up before throwing him against a tree, where he landed back first into the trunk and slid down, his face covered in dirt and grass while his nose seeped blood. The blonde walked over and grabbed him by the sides of his head, then started to pull, placing his foot on the man's chest until he finally ripped it off in a spray of blood and gore, even ripping his spinal column out, still connected to the skull. Half man, half animal. All dead, Naruto chuckled before dropping the still animal-like head and smirking. Reaching down, he unzipped his pants and proceeded to do just as he said and relieved himself on the headless corpse of Mizuki, aiming right down his neck. "I'ma piss on you just like R. Kelly." To be continued. Mizuki attacking him wasn't too much of a surprise really. Most escaped convicts like him had to make a living and usually turned to things like bounty hunting. 9 times out of 10 they ended up hunting after civilians, so there was a strong possibility that he had recognized him from one of the bounty boards and set out for revenge or something. But Naruto didn't give much more thought about that as he continued to trek down the forest road, idly smoking the time away after replacing his bloodstained tank top and wiping Mizuki's blood off his arms. He had to look nice for the ladies after all. Not too many found dried blood too attractive. Not any that he had met, at least. A merchant caravan passed him on the road, most likely going to one of the major fishing ports near the border. A teenage girl around his age saw him and blushed, causing her father to look at her then glare at him. His wife, the girl's mother, smacked him in the head while sporting a smaller blush, which caused the father's glare to increase in intensity. He chuckled a bit at that but kept on walking. It was surreal to think that 4 years ago, he had been a 14-year-old with no clue as to what was. Hell, he had looked like a 10-year-old thanks to the piss-poor diet he had. He had often cursed the Kyuubi for all he was worth after finding out that the fox was the reason he was hated so much, but after a long talk with it not too long after he left Konoha, the fox had become more agreeable with him. But then again, when he controlled every aspect of the fox's life within his mind and could turn its cage into a frozen tundra or burning desert with a thought, the fox found its stay within the seal much better when it did as told. With Kyuubi healing his body and helping with its development, Naruto shot up from his puny stature of 4 foot 7 inches to 5 feet in the first year. He then continued to grow until he reached his current height of 5 foot 10. But his height wasn't the only thing that increased. Once he began to eat better than before, giving his body the nutrients and vitamins that it had been needing for years. Kyuubi helped jumpstart his muscle growth, and once he started working out, he wowed others by his quick growth. Where he had once weighed less than 100 pounds of skin and bone, he now weighed 240 pounds of solid muscle. Team Kurenai had been searching for their target for 4 days, using the information that Jiraiya had provided just before they left, which pointed them in the direction of T-Country, where his spy network had picked up news about a man matching Naruto's new description, causing untold trouble with husbands, boyfriend, and even the feminist population. The Jonin leader of the squad inwardly groaned to herself. Why did she had to lead the team that was chosen to search for one of the biggest perverts in the world? Not to mention that she couldn't inflict bodily harm on him unless he tried anything on her or her female student. She had no doubt that if they even found the man, he'd probably demand something perverted in exchange for returning. That was if he even wanted to return. Even then he might even do the same and then sneak off. Filthy pervert. Glancing to the side, she frowned at Kiba. Despite being a loyal friend and teammate, he too was a pervert and had been caught peeping into the female hot springs a few times. He even got caught drooling over her in Hinata at times and was promptly punished each time. Didn't she have enough trouble with perverts? Did she really need to go on the search for another one that was even worse? Shino. Well, Shino was okay. He normally kept to himself and had never done things like Kiba had, but under that high collar and sunglasses, she figured that he had checked her out a few times. After all, she was a beautiful, woman. Hinata on the other hand was a jewel. Sure, she was a bit shy, but she had been slowly gaining her confidence. She was a perfect student and soon would be a pervert basher just like her. As they leapt from tree to tree, Kurenai glanced at Hinata again and wondered what she was thinking. Unknown to Kurenai, innocent little Hinata's mind was in fact not so innocent. She hid it well, but upon seeing the picture of the blonde Adonis, her inner floozy awoke with a passion. A passion for a certain blonde hunk. She was embarrassed and ashamed to admit that she was a pervert, using her bloodline to look at men around the village. She had even used it on her entire class and knew all the girls' cup sizes to the length each boy's. She easily awaited the day when Sakura Ino discovered that their Sasuke-kun, whom they've always said was the most manly in class, was in fact the smallest. Naruto stopped dead in the middle of the road and blinked behind his sunglasses as three ninja appeared before him, jumping down from the trees and standing in his way. The three wore Kumo-issued gear along with Kumo forehead protectors and swords. The first was a tall, fair-skinned woman with a curvaceous build and large bust. She had blue eyes and straight blonde hair framing her face with a shorter cut in the back and the front bangs reaching her shoulders while her face was frozen in a stoic expression. To his happiness, she wore a very low-cut outfit with mesh underneath, a short skirt and red handguards, high boots and what appears to be a modified Kumobikure flak jacket that covers her stomach only, similar to a girdle. She also had a tanto strapped horizontally to her lower back. The next was a young, dark-skinned male Kumo nin with short, spiky, white hair and dark eyes accentuated with lines curving upwards from the corners. He had a dark outfit consisting of an overlong shirt with a hood, with red bandage handguards, Kumobikure shin guards and forehead protector. The guy had a thoughtful look on his face and chewed on a urur while a long sword was strapped to his back. Lastly was a dark-skinned kunoichi with long red hair and amber eyes. She wore a long, short-sleeved dress with frilly edges complete with the Kumobikure flak jacket, two simple yellow earrings, fishnet stockings, thigh-high boots with white soles and a forehead protector which she wears like a bandana. She, like the guy, carries a long sword on her back. Kumo ninja. He mused while studying the busty blonde and fiery redhead. What are three Kumo nin doing so far from home? Burasuban no Joshi, the blonde leader stated coolly, making Naruto's eye twitch as he instantly knew what this was about. We're here to take you to Kumo where you will stand trial for seducing and bedding Suki Toyotomi. Naruto blinked. Suki Toyotomi. Suki Toyotomi. He muttered while taking a thinking pose. Where have I heard that name? The redhead growled annoyedly. She's the wife of Dashi Toyotomi, the head of the Lightning Lord's samurai force. Oh yeah. Naruto chuckled before grimacing. Oh. The three drew their weapons. Now, surrender peacefully and make this a lot easier. Naruto hummed, and if I refuse? The dark-skinned girl smirked. We'll drag your ass back in ropes. I see. Well, I'm just going to have to refuse. I'm not into bondage with other guys involved. Naruto told them before raising his gloved fists, but seeing as you're from Kumo, let's see how you do against your own styles. The three gaped at him as he dropped into a stance that they all recognized. Samui, that's Sensei's taijutsu, the boy gaped. Not exactly, the blonde girl replied. Naruto nodded. Yeah, I consider this an improvement on Kumo's Omoi Keita Kagai. Heavy style violence. He grinned. This is my Ma Kagai, pure violence, style. The three Kumo ninja glanced at each other. If this man had indeed improved their sensei's style, a style that not only did their sensei but their sensei's brother the Raikage used, they would be Ed. Swallowing their nervousness, they attacked as one, hoping to overwhelm the man. Omoi, Karui, attack formation Delta, Samui ordered. Naruto backpedaled as the male Kumo ninja, Omoi, appeared before him with his longer than normal ninja sword poised and calling out, Cloud style. Crescent moon beheading. In the blink of an eye, Omoi had swung his sword and had barely missed the blonde, making Naruto smirk. Throwing his fist forward, Karui and Samui winced at the sound of Omoi's nose breaking before Naruto roundhouse kicked him into a tree. Oh, that'll leave a mark. He chuckled before turning to the other two who were already upon him. Karui drew her sword, a curved white katana, and showed her mastery of swordplay along with their impressive teamwork as Samui soon joined in. Naruto found himself swearing as he tried to dodge each blade, but for every two that he avoided, one got through. So far, he counted 7 small lacerations spread out over his body and numerous little scratches here and there. Leaning back, he narrowly dodged the white katana that swung past his face before grunting and falling back onto his ass. God damn it, he hissed out, looking down to see the small tanto perching his leg right below the kneecap. Just give up already. The dark-skinned girl growled, sweat forming on her forehead. Naruto glared at her, then to Samui, who was a bit further away, not that they knew thanks to his sunglasses. "Sorry babe, but I got some ass-kicking left to do before I roll over and die," he told them, smirking despite the blade sticking completely through his leg. He reached down and ripped the blade from his leg before going into his pocket and pulling something out, swallowing it before they could stop him. Within moments, they saw the muscles in his arms tighten and relax, tightening up and relaxing over and over again while picking up speed. The wound in his leg, along with all the others, began to steam and heal within seconds as he slowly stood to his feet, muscles bulging in his damaged shirt while veins pulsed on his arms. His head hung down as he breathed heavily just before throwing his head back and releasing a loud roar into the air. "Oh," the pair muttered just as the man blurred towards them. Karui, who was the closest, leapt to the side just in time, as Naruto had swung his fist at her and shattered the earth below him with a single blow that caused a minor shockwave. Turning his head to the girl, he glared at her and repeated the process, turning a tree to splinters with his fist. Samui, hoping to at least distract the man, threw a handful of kunai at Naruto, only to gape as they bounced off his back. This continued for 10 minutes, Naruto attacking them wildly as they tried their best to survive. No matter what they did, their attacks did nothing to him and they were quickly running out of chakra and energy. Even when they tried to escape, he stopped one of them and they refused to leave each other to his mercy. Samui and Karui crashed into a tree, curiosity of Naruto's backhand slap, and coughed in pain before stiffening up as his shadow overlapped their bodies. Naruto grunted and felt his body relax before shaking his head and smirking at them. "You two are pretty good. It's been a while since I used one of my pills. I think the last time was when I fought in Mist's civil war." Knowing that they were beaten, the pair began to fear what he would do to them and could only watch as he slowly walked towards them while talking. "What are you going to do to us?" Karui demanded. "You going to us?" Naruto raised an eye behind his somehow unbroken sunglasses. "Babe, I'm an equal opportunity ass kicker. Not a rapist," he mused before seeing their disbelieving looks. "Seriously. I don't force women to have, they do it willingly. Now, I'm leaving. Take your teammate and go back home. Tell your cage that if he keeps coming after me that I'll rip out his eyes and piss on his brain." Entering one of the towns known for its bars and brothels, Kurenai knew that it was a good bet that their target would be here somewhere. Using her status as a ninja, she and her team talked to the town's local law enforcement and asked about a person matching Naruto's description. "You mean a blonde dude wearing a red muscle shirt, blue jeans, boots, fingerless gloves, smoking a cigar, and looks like a professional athlete?" one of the officers asked as they stood on the street, making the ninjas blink. "Oh, yeah. You seen him before?" Kurenai questioned. The officer shook his head. "Never saw him before," he told her before he leaned to the side and looked over her shoulder. "But is that him right there?" They turned and saw the blonde walking into a strip club. "That's him all right," Kiba said with a perverse grin. "Let's go in after him." As he charged forward, Kurenai snagged him by the ear, making him yelp like a kicked dog. "Oh no you don't, you're staying right out here. If I see you even peeking through the door I'll have you neutered." Pouting, Kiba was forced to sit on a bench on the sidewalk. "Team, I'm going in to talk to him. You stay here, Kiba," she told them while sparing him a fiery glare. Turning, she ignored Kiba's ing about not being able to go in there before entering the strip club and finding the blonde sitting at a table with a bottle of sake in hand while he held his cigar in the other. Walking up to him, she saw him grin and said something that infuriated her. "Dear Diary." Jackpot. The activity out on the street in front of the strip club stopped as a cold, vicious aura engulfed the area just before something broke through the wall and slid down the street, toppling a few people in the way. "How dare you!" came a roar of feminine fury that Teen Kurenai recognized instantly, making Kiba's partner, Akamaru, jump into the teen's coat in fear. As the dust settled, allowing them to see, everyone saw the muscular blonde laid out on the street with a small trench leading up to him. On the other end, Kurenai stood in the now broken wall with her face glowing bright red. Naruto groaned and sat up. "Shit, that hurt," he muttered before reaching up to his bloody nose and popping it back into place. Standing up, he wiped the blood from his face and frowned at the woman who had just punched him through a wall. What was that for? Kurenai stepped out onto the street. "You ask me for a lap dance, you pervert. What do I look like, some stripper?" Naruto blinked. "Ah, yeah. You were in a strip club and dressed like that," he exclaimed while pointing to her exotic dress that looked like it was made of bandages. "I was in a strip club, so naturally I figured that you were coming over to ask me if I wanted to dance. If you aren't a stripper, then I don't know what you are." "Oh," Kiba muttered to his teammates, "I think we're about to fail this mission." Naruto looked at her face. "Oh," he muttered before she could go off, noticing her forehead protector for the first time. "You're a Konoha ninja. That explains a lot." "What is that supposed to mean?" The blonde shrugged. "Konoha kunoichi are well known to be some of the more slutty ninja in the ninja world. But that doesn't matter. What does matter is, what do you want from me?" he hissed out at the woman. "The Hokage wishes for you to return to the village," Shino spoke, his voice even and calm. He had decided to step up and speak because from the looks of it, Kurenai's next words were going to be for a genjutsu to torture the blonde. Naruto looked over to him and looked at the gathered ninjas for a moment before saying, "Well, this is new. No one's ever tried the peaceful method before. But why? I don't recall sleeping with anyone too important in Fire Country." "Hokage-sama just wishes for you to return to the village with us," Shino continued. "We are not hunting you for your bounty." "I see. So are you coming with us or not?" Kurenai growled out, forcing herself to calm down and trying to keep her natural reaction of attacking him from forcing her to do something that she knew she'd enjoy but regret later. Kicking him in the balls. The blonde looked thoughtful. "Nope." "What? Why not?" Naruto hummed and shrugged his shoulders lazily. "I got no reason to. But I'll make a bet with you, Jonan-chan." Kurenai's eyes narrowed. "What kind of bet?" "The kind that, should you win, I'll follow you back to Konoha without a fight. All you have to do is outlast me, one-on-one." "Fine. Where do you want to fight?" Naruto chuckled. Who said anything about fighting? An hour later, Shino found his two teammates next to the motel that they had been planning on staying at for the night should they spend all day looking around the large town for their target. "Can you see anything?" Kiba asked his ninken, only to get a shake of the head from the dog. Both were standing next to a window and trying to peek in, but some thick curtains blocked their view. Shino raised an eyebrow, not that anyone could tell, and then looked at his female teammate, who was staring at the wall intently with a faraway look in her eyes. "What are you doing?" he finally questioned to the dog-like boy. Kiba turned to look at him and grinned. "Didn't you hear? Kurenai-sensei said that she was going to take a shower." That made him sweat drop. Kiba was a perverted idiot. Of course he was trying to peek in on their sensei when she announced that she was going back to the motel to shower. No matter how many times he was punished for being perverted, Kiba knew that being caught by their sensei was much worse than being caught by some random woman at a hot spring. Hinata stood up. "I'm going to my room," she told them suddenly. The fact that she didn't stutter was missed by the two males as Kiba started trying to find an area of the cloth blocking his view that was thin enough to see through. Upon reaching her room, which was right next to Kurenai's, Hinata began to rearrange her room so that her bed was facing right at the wall between her and her sensei's room, then removed the genjutsu over her face, revealing the bright blush as well as the veins around her eyes that showed to the world that her bloodline was active. Kurenai thought that she had tricked them into thinking that Naruto was thinking about returning with them, seeing as they had heard only half of what they said in the streets. But when she suddenly decided to take a shower and quickly used one of the silencing seals that she carried around all the time, mainly because Kiba snored and liked to talk in his sleep, that made her suspicious. So while Kiba was busy trying to peek into the window and Shino was doing whatever he did, Hinata used her bloodline to peek through the wall. What she saw was shocking to say the least. Luckily she had the thought to use a genjutsu to hide her eyes because she didn't want the others to know what she was doing. Locking her door, Hinata covered the window with the curtain and unbuttoned her navy blue pants before lowering them to her knees as she sat down on the edge of her bed. Scooting on her rear, she positioned the pillow behind her back and leaned against the backboard while unzipping her coat. Getting comfortable, she slipped her hands underneath the elastic band of her panties and slid them to her knees with her pants and began to rub herself while staring through the wall where she saw her sensei pleasuring Naruto with her mouth while he rubbed her hair. She felt her lower lips get wetter, imagining herself on her knees with her mouth wrapped around his cock, his hands rubbing softly through her hair while telling her how good a job she was doing. Hinata let out a soft when she saw her sensei tense up. She zeroed in using the slight telescopic abilities that the Byakugan had and saw Kurenai's throat moving, showing that she was swallowing the blonde's semen as hard as she could. "Oh." The girl shuddered, wishing to taste him while her maidenhood got even wetter and twitched. She watched as the man picked Kurenai up and spoke to her before lowering her to the bed, laying her on her back before sinking between her legs with a smirk. Hinata had never been so jealous before as she watched her sensei get eaten out by the man she now wanted to bed. But she couldn't do anything just now thanks to her family and Kurenai herself. She would just have to settle for her fingers. By the time Kurenai came, which was surprisingly fast, the girl had a small wet spot under her from watching this and bit her lip to stop from eating loudly as she saw Naruto mount Kurenai, who was now eager to participate. Hinata pulled her hand away from her aching mount and got off the bed to pull her pants and panties all the way off as she started to sweat. She then pulled her coat off and removed her shirt, fishnet shirt, and bra, leaving her Kami-sama. She huffed while laying back down and spreading her legs wide, looking to see that her sensei was doing the same, only that she actually had something between her thighs while she only had her hand. Panting and sweating, Hinata rolled onto her side and ate on her finger as Naruto flipped Kurenai over and pounded her doggy style while spanking her every now and then. Vigorously pumping 2 fingers into herself, Hinata humped her own hand before taking her other hand and reaching behind her and sticking her spit-covered finger up her own bum. Penetrating her own bum set her over the edge and she came, biting into the bed sheets to stifle her loud yell. When Kiba finally realized that he wouldn't get the pleasure of peeking in on his sensei while she washed, he pouted for a moment before the pre-verbal light bulb went off. Kurenai was here. That meant that he could go to one of the strip clubs. Shino tagged along and went with him for various reasons. 1. Kiba accepted him as a friend and didn't think that he was weird because of his bugs. 2. He knew that Kiba would get in trouble sooner or later. And 3. He knew that Kiba would get in trouble and despite being his friend, he wanted to be there to watch this in person. With their headbands, they got into the adult establishment without a problem, seeing as once you become a ninja you were considered an adult. Kiba quickly went up to a large-chested woman and asked for a dance and was led to a chair where she took his money and started dancing for him. Shino on the other hand didn't ask the first person he saw and walked through the club silently and was quickly found by a Y woman wearing a slutty teacher's outfit complete with a ruler and slim box-framed glasses. "Hi there, cutie," she cooed to him while trailing a finger across his cheek. "Aren't you a little young to be here?" "I'm a shinobi," he stated after a moment, cheeks starting to turn red as she leaned in a little closer, her scent of apples filling his senses. The woman oohed at him and stepped even closer, placing her cleavage very close to his chin while she played with his glasses before her thighs touched his crotch, where he had suddenly got stiff. "A ninja, huh? Well, is that a kunai in your pocket or are you just happy to see me, cutie?" Shino gulped as she giggled at him, feeling embarrassed at her teasing. Sorry." "Oh, there's no reason to be sorry," she told him, "but how about you and me go somewhere a little more quiet, and I'll give you some private tutoring?" He could only nod, not even caring as he saw Kiba get backhanded by the stripper for breaking the no-touching rule as he was pulled into a VIP area and thrown into a soft leather chair. "Just relax, my student," the woman sighed into his ear. "Just let sensei do all the work." A couple of hours later, Team Kurenai met back at the motel with Naruto in attendance. Hinata looked a bit tired, but other than that nothing seemed different. The others just figured that she took a nap and didn't sleep well. Kiba's face was marred with handprints and his wallet was now empty. Shino seemed to draw into his high-collared coat, trying to hide his full-body blush from the memories of what he had done not too long ago while mentally congratulating himself on becoming a man. Kurenai's hair was disheveled, her dress wrinkled, and the pain in her thighs and ass made it hurt to stand let alone walk. The bandages she had worn around her thighs and over her panties were haphazardly replaced and she breathed as if she had just ran miles with Guy chasing her in a Speedo. Naruto on the other hand looked perfectly normal, as if nothing happened. "So team," Kurenai huffed, "we'll stay here tonight. In the morning, we'll set out to return to Konoha." "So you convinced him to come back?" Kiba muttered while nodding at Naruto. Kurenai was silent for a moment, glancing at Naruto who grinned at her. "Ah, yeah. So what did it take to convince him?" Kiba continued cluelessly, making his sensei fight down a blush at the memories of all he did to her. "None of your business, Kiba. No, go to bed, all of you." They did as told and soon Naruto was left alone with Kurenai. "You know, you still lost out wager," Naruto told her. "I'm well within my bounds to leave." She cut him a slight glare. "Then why are you still here?" He grinned, because you agreed that as long as I return with you, I can have you however I want when I feel like it. You may say you dislike me, but deep down, you love it when you like a little whore. Deep down, you're a ing slut. Now, let's go back to your room. I haven't ed you're to be continued.